32 male, wife Fiona 30F and I have been married 5 years and started exploring kink and ENM a couple of years ago. We got really into shibari and have done some full suspensions as my skill level has increased. We have some CNC and light sensation play and flogging, but I have never been comfortable with impact play or more extreme pain play. Fiona met Tim 40 male, at a kink event and they started doing scenes together. At first it was non-sexual but that changed over time. Tim did things I couldn't and Fiona enjoyed the new experiences and they see each other once a week. In the 7 months they have been playing together it has gotten more extreme and is not only worrying me but it has affected our relationship and our intimacy. For example, 1. We made plans to go to a kink convention in another city, hotel, pre-registered for a pricey shibari class. We get there and are checking things out when we run into Tim and he just happened to bring her collar. She wanted to show him an exhibit and I reminded her we had a 2 p.m. class to go to. No problem, she said. She missed the class and didn't show up till 7 p.m., still wearing her collar which has a lock on it. He took it off the next morning before he left. 2. The two of us were invited to a pool party and I asked if she could refrain from getting marked up before the party. The Thursday before the party she came home with her breasts and legs heavily bruised. No way a swimsuit could hide those marks. We ended up not going after some heated words. 3. In June, the day after she came back from his house we were cuddling and I tried to finger her on the couch and she was spotting blood and extremely tender. She ended up at the doctor and she had 2 small vaginal tears and a larger one deeper inside that almost needed sutures. The doctor said no sex for 4 weeks and if the bleeding didn't stop they would have to suture it. This caused a major fight when I said she needed to not see Tim for at least 4 weeks or until she healed completely. It was closer to 5 before we could have sex again. Final straw was 2 weeks ago. We had a Vegas getaway plan complete with show tickets to one of her favorite artists. Once again I asked she not have a bunch of bruises before the trip and be able to have some intimate time while we were gone. I don't know if they did it on purpose but she had several marks that would be visible on the trip. I told her the day before the trip I had reached the breaking point and something had to change. I told her I was going to Vegas alone since she had ignored my request. She was mad but didn't argue much and I blocked her number during the trip. In June I put my foot down when she wanted to wear her day collar on one of our date nights. I ended up telling her if she wore it around me I would cut it into little pieces. We have had several discussions about boundaries and how unhappy I've been since at least 3 days a week she doesn't want intimacy due to her sessions with Tim. She has argued that it is all consensual and she enjoys the sessions so much. I have asked that she limit their sessions to every other week and that we see a counselor to work through our/my issues but she refuses to consider it. We never had a veto agreement in our relationship but I am thinking using a veto on Tim. Some friends of mine have discouraged me from giving her an ultimatum like that. I guess I could phrase it like I can't be in a relationship where my feelings and needs are ignored like this either way. As much as it would hurt I can't live this way anymore. If it means splitting up then I am at that point. I know if I draw a line in the sand I have to be prepared to follow through. I just had a talk with my lawyer this morning to go over my options and get a roadmap if I decide this is my only option. I love my wife but this is just tearing me apart. I hope she feels the same and we can fix this. FYI, I have another partner I see 2 to 3 times a month so this isn't a one-sided arrangement. Formatting on my iPad blows. I will clean it up when I get home. Update 1. Fiona and I had a long talk tonight. She sat and heard me out for the most part. I tried to make it about how I was feeling and what I felt was missing in our relationship. Fiona actually apologized and said she was still very much in love with me and cared a lot about our marriage and would make an effort to be more mindful of my needs and feelings. But, said she would not allow me to dictate the terms of her relationship with Tim as it is also very important to her. I said I couldn't see the two relationships being compatible, especially from my point of view. Things went downhill from there. I finally said we needed to separate for a while until we could figure out if we wanted to work on saving the marriage or simply call it quits. I suggested she go stay with a friend or relative while we thought this out. Her response was to call my bluff, saying she wasn't going to let me manipulate her into giving in to my demands. She wasn't leaving and said I had no intention of divorcing her. I told her I had already spoken with an attorney and was deadly serious, which she called BS on. She grabbed some things and went into the guest room and shut the door. Crap will hit the fan tomorrow as I am following instructions from my lawyer. I transferred the money from the checking account into a different account and then called the debit and credit cards in as lost and had them issue new cards with new account numbers. They said it would take 6 to 8 business days for our new cards to arrive. I also changed all the passwords on our accounts. Tomorrow I plan to get a storage unit and start moving some of my things out of the apartment. And of course, call the lawyer and give the green light to have Fiona served. She doesn't carry much cash so I should be getting a call early tomorrow after she leaves. I'll be leaving before she does for work tomorrow so I will miss her reaction if she decides to wear her day collar, which is in 3 pieces now. Update 2. Brief recap. My wife of 5 years got into her first BDSM relationship with heavy impact play, something I wasn't comfortable doing, and loved it but it got out of hand and began to bleed over into our relationship. None of my requests or boundaries were listened to and there were several major red flags events that finally became too much for me. Earlier this week we had a long discussion where she heard my concerns and acted like she wanted to try and make things better, but in almost the same breath said that her relationship with Tim, her dom, was equally important and she wouldn't let me dictate terms of their relationship. I said I felt the two relationships were not compatible and we should separate for a while to figure out if we wanted to work on saving our marriage or simply call it quits. Her response was to call my bluff in her words and she wasn't going to let me manipulate her into giving in to my demands. She said she wasn't leaving and I had no intention of divorcing her. I told her I was deadly serious and had already talked with a lawyer, which she called BS on. She grabbed some things and shut herself up in the guest room. I reported all our cards as lost and had them frozen and requested cards with new numbers. I also changed the passwords on all our accounts and moved our checking balance to a savings account. There was a substantial amount in the account that I wanted to preserve in case she decided to do something rash. I gave the lawyer a green light to have her served. I also rented a storage unit and moved a lot of my valuables and keepsakes just in case. I had already pulled about $2,000 in cash out to get by until the new cards arrived in about 7 business days. I also took a pair of snips to her day collar and cut it into 3 pieces. She called me from Starbucks asking why none of her cards were working the next morning and I told her what I had done. She said we needed to talk when she got home and I said we had already had a talk but wasn't listening to me. When she got home she saw her day collar sitting on the dining room table in pieces and started going off on me. I let her vent and when she asked if I had anything to say I told her I was tired of having it shoved in my face all the time. While I was telling her off she noticed several things missing around the apartment and I said I had put them in safekeeping for now. I told her she needed to set up a checking account and get her paychecks direct deposit routed there and once she had it set up then I would transfer money from our joint account. She asked what was she supposed to live on till that happened and I said you can ask Tim for a loan since he is your new primary now. Then I said if you need some cash I can give you enough to get by until you get things changed over. I said she wasn't going to run up any more debt on the credit cards and she should apply for one if she thought she couldn't live without one. I said my lawyer said you should get served on Friday and you should look into getting someone to represent you. She grabbed her purse and said you're insane, I can't be here right now and headed towards the door. She stopped halfway and turned around and said she needed gas money. I handed her $100 and she stormed out. She came back in about an hour and said I couldn't do this and we needed to talk. I went through all the red flags again that I had listed in the first post and said I wouldn't live like this anymore. She doesn't want to separate or get a divorce and now wants to get marriage counseling. I said I would do counseling if she stopped seeing Tim until things were settled. She blew up and said I didn't get to make that call and I agreed and said that was her call but I wouldn't entertain counseling while she was still seeing Tim. Thursdays are their normal play night, tonight, and she wanted to go talk with him in person first if she was going to pause their relationship. I put my foot down and said she could do that over the phone and if she went over to his house to go ahead and pack her bags and just stay there. I said if she showed up with a new bruise then we were done, no second chances. We have an appointment with a counselor next week, he is kink friendly and came recommended from several people. I told her counseling doesn't change the divorce decision, and if we are to cohabituate and try to rebuild something I needed to be legally free to walk away if things go bad again. She didn't like this and argued we could maybe work that out in our counseling session. Sorry for the long read, I will see if she is committed to what she says she will do, but it seems like she is only 80% on board and keeps waffling on the details. Maybe when she gets served she will make up her mind. Either way I am staying the course on the divorce, no matter what direction things go. Thanks for everybody's support and advice. She also called Tim and canceled their playdate for tonight and said they were taking a break. We have an appointment with a therapist next week. For now, she is still sleeping in the guest room. Update 3. Few hours ago there's been 2 sort of updates in the comments. I will report here the exchange between Redditor and OOP. She hasn't had any contact with her dom in a couple of days. If she does pick him I'm ready to move on. But the last few days she sure has been fighting to hold us together. I've been pretty clear together doesn't include Tim. Redditor, did she receive the divorce papers? What was her reaction? She thought you were bluffing. Wondering how she reacted when she actually had the documents in her hand if it finally hit home? Also curious what Tim's reaction is to all this. Is he genuinely upset that he caused this rift or is he so self-absorbed that he doesn't give a shit as long as he has a sub to punish? OOP, she got served Monday afternoon at work. It was extremely embarrassing because she was with a bunch of her colleagues and it was obvious after she opened the package. I think she already knew that I was serious but being served was like getting ice water dumped on your head. Tim has actually reached out to me through my bunny, he gave her a card with his number on it and asked her to have me call him. Both my wife and I both had blocked him on our phones recently. Redditor, are you planning on calling him? OOP, eventually, but not right away. If he reaches out again to see if she delivered the message I will probably. Redditor, I imagine you don't have any clue what his disposition in this, whether his motivation is to be supportive or confrontational. For example, OOP, from the way he reached out I would say definitely not confrontational, plus it would paint him in a bad light in the community. Most of the events around here are invitation only and he wouldn't want to get blacklisted. Other than that, I don't know if he is trying to be supportive and actually cares about preserving my wife's relationship with me or if he just wants access to his sub again. Edit, formatting update 4. And then this, Redditor, you mentioned having an appointment with a kink-friendly counselor this week. Have you gone yet and if so how'd it go? OOP, they had a hard time staying neutral after hearing all the details. My wife had a lot of hard questions thrown at her. Some of the answers were both surprising and hurtful. We each have 2 letters to write to each other about how we are feeling and another about where we see our relationship going and what we want out of it. My wife was very quiet on the way home and we haven't talked much today about it. And this, Redditor, wait, so did she ever apologize for those 3 big red flags? Does she understand what she did wrong now? And that first one, how the hell did she justify that to me? That one seems insane, shows up late and with the collar and can't/refuses to take it off for the rest of the day? How the hell did she ever think that was okay? Edit, also did you ever have her read these threads and the replies? OOP, first she does not do Reddit and has no clue I have shared this with anyone other than a few friends. She did apologize for missing the class we had signed up for, said they lost track of time and was visiting with friends. What has really upset me was leaving the collar on was her idea. This came out in therapy the other night. She liked walking around in her collar and didn't realize it was going to ruin things in my eyes. She kind of blew off the pool party incident as it being my problem. But the tears she admitted fault in for not being responsible and saying something to stop before the damage happened. Overall, she knows I have a right to be angry but doesn't think we need to divorce over it. She says she is willing to compromise and make things right again. Edit, formatting update 5. A lot to unpack and respond to, but I'll try to keep it short. Tim has reached out to me twice now, so I had a decent conversation with him today. I voiced some of my concerns and things I felt he disrespected by doing. He apologized for the incident at the kink event but didn't realize I didn't know he was attending as well. The collar incident was mostly Fiona's idea and he had not intended for her to keep it on all night. He was not aware of the pool party incident but had tried to limit bruising before our trip to Vegas. He seemed remorseful that he had caused so much turmoil in Fiona and my relationship. While he did admit to going too far a few times, he said he had to end several of their sessions because of the lack of Fiona's own limits and that she had only used her safe word once in their relationship. He told me he was afraid she might allow herself to get injured badly if she continued on like she had been. He told me he was not going to see her again for several reasons. He also asked if she would reach out to him so he could explain. Tim rents dungeon space from a local pro dom, who has a large space that rents to locals. She has suspended his privileges there for 60 days. Not sure if it is related to us or not. I do know the dom and have attended private events there before. Our second counseling session went well. Fiona has her first individual session with a different therapist today. I have been impressed by the effort and attitude she is putting into therapy. Divorce is still on track. Her lawyer met with mine this morning. She is not contesting the divorce and our financials are already separated. Our 401ks were almost equal, so there is nothing there to split. Both lawyers think we can expedite things rather quickly. Our lease is up in November and by that time we should know if we plan to continue to cohabitate. Fiona doesn't know yet about my conversation with Tim. She says she hasn't reached out to him, which he confirmed in our talk. We did sleep in the same bed last night and were intimate for the first time in a long while. In the letter she wrote to me from our first session was that she might want a different relationship going forward, possibly a 24/7 DS arrangement, but we are still talking about what that might look like. While this update sounds all happily ever after, I still have a lot of concerns and trust issues. So I went to the event center where our kink event is planned for tonight to help with some setup and found out details about the dungeon debacle. Tim had assault charges filed against him and police went to the dungeon space to investigate, which disrupted some business the owner was doing there at the time. Tim had a sub filed charges against him and has threatened to sue the owner of the dungeon as well. The dom that owns the space suspended his privileges there for 60 days and it will result in a permanent ban if he can't make all this go away. I know there are multiple waivers and consent forms that everyone who enters that space has to sign, so the lawsuit will likely go away. But I'm sure the owner isn't happy about having her business on the police and community's radar. I was inundated with questions last night from people wondering if I was involved due to recent events and my pending divorce. A couple of people even suggested I should reach out to the dungeon owner to voice my opinion on Tim. At any rate, it doesn't appear that our situation was the reason for him losing his privileges and he is just trying to put out fires at this point. Now on to second story. Refused to share my assets with my girlfriend, prompting her to make unreasonable demands, and now I wonder if a prenup would make me an asshole. So I, 26 male, have been dating my GF, 25F, for a little over a year, and this is something my mom and some friends have mentioned to me. I have a great job and make about $95,000 a year, have a comfortable savings of a few thousand. I own my house and 2 cars, 2012 Acura MDX and 2015 Cadillac Atz. I also make $1,200 a month in rent. She currently works part-time at a bar. She has mentioned before about me adding her to the title of my house, to which I told her I would not as she doesn't contribute anything to it. I purchased my second car 2 months ago as the first one was paid off. I told her she could drive my old car, but she wanted me to sell it and use the money to help her buy a car for her. I also declined this request but instead offered to help her buy a cheaper car off buy and sell, as I'm not sure how my new car would fare in the winter. She's gotten really upset about those 2 instances. She also asks for Desi and her handbags often, $3,000, to which I say no, as I feel like it's a waste of money. It's not that I have a problem spending money on her as smaller gifts that are more reasonable, I have no issue with. I don't plan on marrying her anytime soon, but would I be an asshole for asking her to sign one if we ever got married? Edit 1. I'm also not sure if this is really an 8th question, but if you know somewhere better to post this, please let me know. Edit 2. Fixed punctuation. Update 1. Hey, so I was planning on doing this conversation with my girlfriend on Saturday, when neither of us need to worry about work. This is gonna be a bit longer than my original as well. Also, to the people who were saying that I'm not as rich as I think I am, I know damn well I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination. The things I listed were to give an example as to how far out some of her requests have been. I got home at around midnight and she got home around 3:30 a.m. after her shift at the bar. She wasn't in the best of moods and started to say how things aren't like they were before. I agreed with her and then asked her how long she was planning on staying at the bar and if she was going to look for a more full-time or reliable job. She told me she wants to be a realtor in a year or two and I asked her when she decided that. She told me about a week ago. I wasn't trying to pressure her, but I asked her what steps she needed to take in order to make it happen. She didn't give me a full answer and just mentioned that she was talking to a lady who worked as a realtor who was at the bar a few weeks ago. I told her I was happy she had a goal that she was aiming for. She then said she wanted to buy an apartment herself next year. As she wants to live by herself for a bit, I asked her how she was going to manage getting it and she asked if I'd help her. I asked her just as an estimate if I was to help what percentage I would be contributing and she said about 80. This is where things started to take a turn. I said I don't think that would be fair, as she decided to sell it the money would go 50-50. She didn't have anything to say to that, so I asked her, if you went out on your own and purchased that apartment, used all the money you worked for, and then I came in, married you and left, how comfortable would you be selling it? She said she wouldn't be comfortable with it. I tried to explain that's how I felt with some of the things she's mentioned to me. She told me the guy is supposed to provide, and while I don't disagree with the statement, I thought back to a lot of comments on my last post of some ladies who were saying they make more than their husband, and they were for the idea of the prenup, not because he couldn't provide but as asset protection. I also told her that some of her previous comments, such as being on the deed to my house, and me selling my car to buy her one, made me uneasy. She told me I was lying about the car, because she corrected me and said she asked me to trade it in for a new car for her. This is where I asked her, what do you think of a prenup agreement for if we get married? She started crying, saying I didn't trust her and that I was already planning on leaving her if that's what I had in mind. I told her that's not the case, we can both have one. I used a lot of examples people mentioned to me recently, such as her winning the lottery, getting a great job, or receiving an inheritance. It is protection for both of us. She didn't say anything to what I said, instead just looked away and said I'm all by myself again. She was still crying. She asked if I would have asked someone who made more money than her to sign one as well. I told her I don't think I'd get married without one at this point. I brought up how the number one reason for divorce is rooted to finances and we don't see eye to eye on anything in that field. She asked what I meant. I asked her how much she's seen me spend on myself in the last year and, after a minute of thinking, she said almost nothing. I asked her if she has a closet and drawers filled to the point they don't close or open right of close, why she kept wanting new ones. She told me it's for her mental health, then asked me if I even cared about her mental health. I told her I did immensely, as I hate seeing her sad, but also told her that spending money to try and make yourself happy is a temporary fix and it will be a repeating cycle. This was close to 6:30 a.m. and she told me that I should get some rest before work, as I leave at 1 to drive to work. So the conversation ended there and we both tried to sleep. I left out one topic from our conversation that was prevalent in my previous post about intimacy. We did discuss it though. We talked more after I woke up around 9 Saturday. I'll bring grabbing my stuff from her place and we'll be going our separate ways. Thanks to everyone's opinion who commented on my previous post. I know I might not have handled the situation perfectly, but this conversation with her was probably the hardest talk I've ever had to have.